welcome back to Nails Before Films. It's your favorite disgrace to society, back with another movie review. Last time I did the 1986 Transformers the movie. The link for that is in the description and top right corner now. Today, I'll be reviewing Transformers 1, and this one is truly more than meets the eye. I watched it twice and got 3 drink toppers. It's that good. I'm super happy I got both Optimus root mode and alt mode. Before watching the movie, I had little hope for Transformers 1 like many people because of the childish commercials. It seemed like a Despicable Me type film with immature humor targeted toward kids. I assure you, the actual film is nothing like that. The first half is more lighthearted, but the film takes a dark turn and the second half is very serious. The writing is really solid, and it's better than all of the live-action Transformers. Yes, even Bumblebee, in my opinion. If you haven't watched Transformers 1 yet, please give it a chance. I watched it 2 times, and both times, all of the audience enjoyed the movie. I believe if you're a Transformers fan, you'll love it. You'll even enjoy it if you're not a Transformers fan. I will be getting into spoilers, so please come back after you've watched it. Anyway, let's get into it. The story of Transformer 1 is better, deeper, and more emotional than the live-action movies. That being said, it's certainly not perfect. For example, Sentinel is so obviously the villain. We first saw him making an announcement saying that he failed to recover the Matrix. I was like, he's definitely lying. He's probably why the Matrix is gone. He's just too disingenuous. It's very obvious that he's manipulative and lying. However, despite knowing that he was up to no good, I was still shocked by the extent of his betrayal. I didn't see working for the Quintessence and killing the Primes coming. So knowing Sentinel is the bad guy doesn't really take away the twist. And because the movie does a great job showing how much the protagonist believe and admire Sentinel, you still sympathize with them when they find out the truth. The story can get convenient at times, like how Orion and D16 just stumble into B-127, who coincidentally salvaged the transmission from Alpha Trion. You'd think that Sentinel would make sure such evidence is destroyed. It's also convenient that Alpha Trion is alive for exposition. Sentinel made sure to kill all other primes, yet he missed Alpha Trion for some reason. Why not make sure all of them are dead before leaving? It's not like he was in a hurry. Even better, he should have destroyed the Prime's corpses to make sure that no one would ever find out the truth. There's literally no one stopping him. I'm also not a big fan of how they defeat Sentinel. Alpha Trion initially gives them proof showing that Sentinel is a traitor, but it gets destroyed later. I already have a problem with this. Why doesn't Alpha Trion just go with them? He can directly tell everyone the truth. Wouldn't that be more convincing? I know that he stays behind to buy the others time to escape, but wouldn't it be better if he protected them along the way? He could even teach them how to transform. I just think it's weird how they don't even consider getting Alpha Trion back to Iacon. That seemed like the most straightforward way to overthrow Sentinel. I know Orion tries to get him to go with them, but he declines by saying his fight is here or something. I feel like a better explanation would be he was too damaged and he didn't want to slow them down. Anyway, they defeat Sentinel in the end by broadcasting the memory of Arachnid, his right-hand bot. I don't think this is a bad idea, I just wish they foreshadowed that this was something they could do. Maybe have Arachnid replay Orion and D16's Iacon 5000 run when they first meet Sentinel, showing that she sees everything and her memory is accessible. Besides Sentinel, the High Guard is also weird. You're just going to follow some guy you've met for less than a day. Didn't you guys work for Primes before? Why are you switching allegiance so easily? All because Megatron beat up Starscream? Then shouldn't you guys follow Optimus now that he's beaten Megatron? But no, they're really determined to follow Megatron. I know that Optimus would never accept them after they nearly destroyed Iacon, but still, I just find High Guard to be a really weird group and I don't know what they want. Why do they have this bizarre belief in the power of one bot? You think the High Guard would have higher moral values. Lastly, does Cybertron not have jails? Why did Optimus exile them? That's definitely going to bite you in the afterburner later. I really don't think allowing a group of highly dangerous bots to leave is the right thing to do. Despite the many flaws I just mentioned, I still think Transformers 1 is very well written, especially compared to the live actions. Instead of the copy-paste plot of every Bayformer where the good guys have to find a thingy before the bad guys or the world ends, Transformer 1 has much more depth and character development. I absolutely love Orion's and D16's transformations to Optimus and Megatron. It's done very naturally. Megatron doesn't just become evil. His rage is very understandable and you do sympathize with him. He has every right to be angry, and Sentinel does deserve to die, but he shouldn't have allowed his rage to control him. In the end, he betrays the ones who truly care about him because he can't move past his anger. It's something we can all relate to. Sometimes we are hurt by others so deeply, and we may have every right to be angry. But if we don't forgive and allow hatred to grow inside us, we'll become the worst version of ourselves and may even hurt the ones we love. It's heartbreaking to watch D16 descend into Megatron, especially after how caring he was in the beginning. And it didn't have to be this way. He had the choice to rebuild Cybertron with his friends, like many other bots who had also been betrayed by Sentinel, but he chose revenge and it was a slippery slope from there. The movie does an amazing job showing how D16 turns into Megatron, and we can feel his pain and anger. My only complaint is that some of Megatron's line could have been better. Instead of "I got it" when he takes Alpha Trion's proof from Orion, "I said I got it" would be better in my opinion. It would better demonstrate how he's starting to become impatient and even irritated by Orion. And when he accidentally shoots Orion, instead of "Why did you do that?" maybe "Why did you stand in my way?" would be more effective and make his decision to let Orion die more understandable. But other than that, Transformers 1 is an amazing origin for Megatron. Transformers 1 also does an excellent job portraying Orion Pax and Optimus. Although Orion is very bratty in the beginning, deep down he's still the Optimus we know and love. It's as Alita says, he's not the best miner and he breaks protocol all the time, but he's the only one who has hope. He breaks the rules for good reasons, so despite being more childish and brash, Orion has the spark of Optimus. I think it's ironic that when they discover the truth about Sentinel, D16 blames Orion and accuses him of being selfish. But in reality, Orion is the only one who's selfless. Besides him, every bot only thinks for themselves and stays in line because they believe they don't have any other choices. Alita only care about being promoted, and even D16 didn't dare to do anything outside mining. They all believe that this is it for them, except Orion. He believes that all of them, not just himself, can be so much more. That's why he wants to participate in Iacon 5000 and help find the Matrix, so that everyone can have a better future. Even after he discovers the truth, his focus is on how to save all Cybertronians from Sentinel's tyranny, not revenge. Despite coming from the same place and experiencing the same betrayal, Orion chooses to do what's right for everyone instead of doing what he wants like D16. In the end, it comes as no surprise that he's chosen as the new Prime. I cried when Orion was revived as Optimus Prime and D16 became Megatron. As someone who got into Transformers because of Optimus, it's really touching to see Orion become Optimus. It's what I have been waiting for the whole movie. But at the same time, it's heartbreaking that the greatest day of his life is also the saddest day. Orion finally lives up to his full potential, just like he believed he could, but at the cost of his best friend. My only complaint is that Orion's speech to recruit his fellow miners against Sentinel could have been better. It's not that powerful and goes on for too long. Besides Optimus and Megatron, the supporting characters Alita 1 and B127 are also likable. I was a bit iffy about them at first. Alita seemed like a bossy, overly serious female character, but as the movie progressed, her attitude softened and it's nice that she was the one who encouraged Orion when he was in doubt. She no longer believed that Orion ruined her life and even put her trust in him to save Cybertron. Besides, it's understandable why she was so angry and no nonsense in the beginning. She believed that mining was all she was good for, like so many other bots. So it must have been devastating for her to be demoted when she did everything in her power to follow protocols. Once she realizes she's much more than that, she's no longer so strict and unforgiving. As for B127, he was a bit annoying during the first half. He talked way too much and some of the jokes didn't land. The Badassatron gag went on for way too long. I get it. He's a pathetic, lonely loser who named himself Badassatron. However, it's understandable why he's so talkative. He's been alone for too long, so he's probably just happy to talk to real bots. His constant talking isn't insufferable, and most importantly, he doesn't ruin serious moments. After the group learns about Sentinel's betrayal, even B becomes more serious, and the film tones down the childish humor significantly. I really like how stunned B is after he learns the truth, and he's nearly speechless, just like the others. And when Sentinel tortures D16, he looks horrified and even tells D to stay down. They allow B to be serious in serious situations instead of just being the comic relief. Even though I find the first half of Transformers 1 to be a bit childish, the humor in this film actually lands most of the time. So many people laughed out loud in the theater, including me. From Orion pretending to transform and running away in the beginning, to B's, "This is the greatest day of my life, I get to work for the government," at the end. The movie achieves a good balance of humor, seriousness, and emotions. Although I did go, "Aw, why did they make Shockwave such a pussy?" when he immediately changes his attitude after Alita threatens to punch him in the eye again, that part is still pretty funny. The humor might be a bit more geared toward kids, but it never gets insufferable, and it's funny for the most part. There are also some nice Easter eggs and references for TF fans. Orion and Alita have an exchange about having the touch and the power. Alita mentions GoBots when she's mad about Orion. B-127's knife hand design looks a lot like Bumblebee's stingers from Transformers Animated. And B's fake friend Steve might be a reference to Steve the Viacom from Transformers Prime. After all, they did bring back Brian Taylor, who scored Transformers Prime. No wonder the music sounded so familiar. I really like TFP's music, so I'm happy they brought him back, and I think he did a good job for Transformers 1 too. But the songs in Transformers the movie are definitely better than the end credits song for Transformers 1. Now that I've mentioned some other Transformers series, I've heard that some people think Transformers 1 breaks lore and that Transformers should be about good versus evil, Megatron shouldn't be a tragic type of villain, etc., etc. And I disagree. Transformers lore changes in every iteration. It's different in every cartoon, comic, and movie. G1 lore is very loose. They can just make new Transformers like the Dinobots, but there's also the Season 3 explanation that Transformers were created by Quintessons. Since then, every Transformers iteration has been different, so I don't mind Transformer 1 having its own lore. Besides, it's not entirely original either. Transformer 1 actually combines the ideas of many other Transformers series. Megatron and Optimus used to be friends in Transformers Prime, with Megatron's old name being Megatronus, and in the IDW comics, Megatron used to be a miner. If you're familiar with the Transformers franchise, you won't be surprised by this origin at all, and because it's done well, I find it completely acceptable. I know that a lot of people think the Transformers look weird in Transformers 1, but I personally don't mind it. I feel like they're going for a style that combines G1 and Transformers Prime, so if you've watched TFP and don't mind the visuals, you'll probably find Transformer 1's aesthetic acceptable too. Personally, I think the animation and visuals are amazing. Of course, it's not as beautiful as the hand-drawn 80s anime style of the 1986 movie, but Transformer 1 is very well animated. I love the vibrant colors of the Transformers and how majestic Iacon is, but I also love how dark the movie can get. The design for the Quintessons and their ship is really gloomy and ghastly. The moment they appear, the tone shifts completely. Transformer 1 isn't just pretty colors, they use the right visuals for the right moments. I also like how they keep the surprisingly violent theme from the 1986 movie. From the commercials, you never would have guessed how brutal Transformer 1 is, and it's done in a meaningful way. Megatron freaking rips Sentinel apart, and it shows just how far gone he is. It's a good thing they're robots. You'll never see a person get ripped apart in a kid's movie. My only complaint about the aesthetic is the weird nature thing on the surface. They don't really explain why Cybertron has nature and whether or not it's normal. It looks cool, but completely unnecessary. Another thing I'm a bit iffy about is the voice acting. I can still hear Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, and Miles Morales' dad in Orion, Alita, and D16. It does distract me a bit, but they do a decent job for the most part. It's nowhere as iconic as the original cast. Chris Hemsworth sometimes sounds like he's doing his best Optimus impression, but not quite getting there, but they do get the job done. And after D16 becomes more Megatron, Brian Tyree Henry does a great job voicing his anger and hatred. The fights are definitely another highlight of Transformers 1. I absolutely adore how much they utilize transformations during the fights. It's amazing. As a Transformers fan, it's super hard to see Transformers 1 underperform at the box office. It really is a solid, well-animated, emotional movie. Even if you're not a Transformers fan, you can still definitely appreciate it. I completely blame the marketing and release schedule for this underperformance. Why did they market this as a silly, funny movie for kids? All of the commercials mostly show jokes from the film, giving people an inaccurate impression that this is a silly film made for little kids. That's what I thought too, so I went in with zero expectation. Imagine my surprise when the film turned out to be the best Transformers media in a long time. From the marketing, it would seem like their target market is kids. Then why did this movie come out at the end of September? It makes no sense. They never should have marketed it as a funny kids movie, especially when the film is clearly not made for the same audience as Illumination films. And they don't even have to mention the heavy stuff in the second half. The trailers could have just told us that the Matrix is lost during the war with the Quintessons, Orion wants to find it, but then we discover he's just a cogless miner, not the leader we expect him to be. Throw in some of the fight scenes and a few of Orion's lines about how the most important thing is your spark, the movie immediately seems more interesting and serious. So many Transformers fans would be happy to see such a film. Why did the marketing do this film dirty? It's infuriating that such a solid film gets misrepresented so badly. I really want sequels for Transformers 1. I hope the box office and positive audience responses are enough for Hasbro to make another. That's basically my thoughts on Transformers 1. It's basically what TF fans have always wanted. There are no humans, lots of action, lots of transformations, and most importantly, a decent heartfelt story about characters we love. You can feel that the people who work on this film are Transformers fans themselves. I cried again during the credits because it's been 38 years since the last animated Transformers movie, and I was so happy that this one was done well. In the 1986 movie, both Optimus and Megatron died, so it's touching that this new one is about how they came to be. This is a great film to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Transformers. Hope you guys like my review and nails. I'm not really proud of this set, but it's decent at least. This is Megatron, Optimus, Alita, Bee, and the logo. Let me know what you think in the comments. My next video will probably be about Joker, so stay tuned for that. As always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment, share, do what you want. Follow me on other social media if you like. Links are in the description. Keep nailing it and remember, all are one, people.